Hilda? Why are you looking at me like that? Why is everyone screaming? I tried to say her name, but my voice was not my voice anymore. It came out small, thin, like a broken whistle. My mouth was not my mouth. It had pushed forward into a wet, twitching snout. My hands were gone. In their place were tiny, clawed paws, shaking on the altar mat. The drums were still beating, the incense was still burning, the wedding cloth was still bright. But I was sinking, shrinking, trapped inside a body that was not mine. Black fur crawled over my skin, a long tail burned out of my spine. I could smell fear like smoke all around me. The last thing I saw as a man was my mother's face. Too calm, too still. I was not a prince anymore. I was a rat. It all started weeks ago, the day I first met Hilda of Tula, and she told me a truth that cut deeper than any sword. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. If you love high-stakes stories filled with magic, mystery, and big twists, don't just watch. Join the journey. Like the video, share it with someone who loves powerful tales, and hit subscribe because my next story is extra special. You won't want to miss it. Morning light lay over Lumora like warm cloth. From far above, the kingdom looked like a red clay flower opening beside a shining river. The round palace wall hugged the water, and inside it rose the tall Palace of Kings, with its curved stairs and cool blue pools. Around the palace spread rows of houses, markets, and farms. Everywhere, people were busy. Women carried baskets of yams and peppers on their heads. Men pushed carts or led goats and cows along the paths. Children chased each other around water pots, laughing so loudly that birds flew up from the trees. Over all this noise, one shout rose again and again. "Kamso is back! Prince Kamso has returned!" Feet pounded toward the main road that led to the palace gate. Dust jumped into the air. From the gate towers, guards leaned forward and smiled. On a tall, dark horse rode Prince Kamso of Lumora. He was young, strong, and handsome. His skin was warm brown, and a faint scar crossed his right cheek like a white whisper. His hair was in neat cornrows that ended in short braids at the back of his head. He wore a deep indigo tunic with a light leather vest over it, and a short sword hung at his side. Beside him trotted dust-covered guards. Behind him, the banner of Lumora, with its lion and river sign, snapped in the wind. The people cheered when they saw him. "Kamso, our lion prince! May the gods bless you, brave one!" Old women ululated, their tongues trilling, sending sharp, happy sounds into the hot air. Children ran beside the horse, trying to touch the prince's boots. Some almost fell, but they did not care. The prince was home. He lifted one hand in greeting. His smile shone almost as bright as the sun. He sat tall in the saddle and let the praise wash over him like cool water. "My people love me," he thought. "I protect them. I lead them. This is my destiny." The head guard on the wall blew a long, deep note on a horn. The heavy drawbridge over the moat creaked as ropes pulled it down. Slowly, with a groan, it lowered and met the stone on the inside with a dull thud. Kamso crossed the bridge and entered the round courtyard between the outer wall and the inner buildings. The pale stone floor was warm under his horse's hooves. Shade trees on one side threw broken shadows across the ground. Palace workers, maids, and guards bowed as he passed. He dismounted, handing the reins to a stable boy. Sweat stuck his tunic to his back. His shoulders ached from long days of riding and fighting. He wanted to wash, eat spicy stew, and tell his father the king about their victory over the border bandits. But even before his boots fully touched the stone, trouble stepped out to meet him. A small group of villagers pushed forward past the guards. Their clothes were dusty and patched. Their faces were thin and tired, eyes ringed with worry. One woman held a bundle wrapped in cloth close to her chest, as if it were treasure. "Stop there," a guard said, but his voice was not harsh. He knew their type. People from burnt farms. People who had walked far. "Please, let them speak," Kamso said. He liked to see himself as a fair prince. The guard stepped aside. The villagers bowed low. The man in front spoke first. He looked about 35. His skin was cocoa brown, and his tunic hung loose on his thin frame. "Please, my prince," he said, voice shaking. "Bandits burned our storehouse near Tula. Our grain is gone. Our children are hungry. We beg for help." The courtyard grew quiet. Even the stable boy stopped moving. Kamso's smile faded a little. He had just come from chasing bandits near the border. He had seen men fall, had smelled blood and smoke. His bones felt heavy. He wanted rest. He spread his hand in what he hoped was a kind gesture. "My people, I have just come from battle for your sake. The council will hear your case. Speak to them tomorrow." The man swallowed. "But my prince," he tried again, "the council did not listen last month. Kamso's jaw tightened. He saw guards, maids, and even children watching him. A prince could not look weak. If he stopped here, right after a victory, some might think he cared more for tears than for strength. "I said," he repeated, his voice harder, "the council will handle it. Trust your prince. Go in peace." He half turned away. His indigo cape swung, brushing lightly against the woman's wrapped bundle. The villagers bowed again because they had been taught to bow. They stepped back because they were free to do anything else. Their faces were stiff, like clay left too long in the sun. Kamso did not look back. He never saw the hurt in their eyes. He did not see the woman's hands tighten on the bundle as if holding back a sob. He did not hear the small, dry cough from inside the cloth, a sick child too weak to cry loudly. Instead, he walked toward the inner arch, thinking, "I must stay strong. They should trust me. That is enough." From the shade of one of the trees, someone had watched the whole scene. She was a young woman with clay-brown skin and calm, steady eyes. She wore a simple earth-colored wrapper and a loose blouse. Her hair was braided back and wrapped in a dull green scarf. On her shoulder hung a small, woven bag filled with dried leaves and roots. Her name was Hilda. She came from the village of Tula, not far from where the bandits had burned the storehouse. People called her the Girl of Leaves because she knew many herbs and healing plants. Some whispered that the forest mothers, the old spirits who guarded trees and streams, had blessed her hands. Hilda watched the villagers move away like people leaving a grave. She watched the proud, straight line of the prince's back as he disappeared through the arch. One of the maids beside her sighed. "Our prince fought hard," the maid murmured. "Maybe he is just tired." "Even a tired ear can listen," Hilda said quietly. The maid looked at her, surprised by the firmness in her soft voice. "You would speak to the prince like that?" Hilda did not answer. Her fingers brushed the leaves in her bag, as if asking them for wisdom. Later that day, Hilda walked through the busy market, carrying her basket of herbs. The sun was high now, turning the red clay walls bright and hot. Traders shouted prices. Drums from distant stalls beat a lazy rhythm. At one stall, a little boy lay on a mat, sweating and shaking. His mother fanned him with a woven tray, worry lines deep on her forehead. "Can I help?" Hilda asked. The woman looked up with tired eyes. "We have no money for palace healers," she said. "I am not from the palace," Hilda replied, with a small smile. "I am from the forest side. I take what people can give." She knelt, pressed the boy's wrist, looked at his tongue, touched his forehead. She pulled bitter leaves from her basket to crush them in a small calabash and mixed them with water. "Slow sips," she told the boy. "This will fight the fire in your blood." The mother watched, hope and fear battling in her eyes. As Hilda worked, a shadow fell across her hands. She looked up. Prince Kamso stood there, dressed now in a fresh tunic, his sword still at his side. Two guards hovered a few steps behind him, unsure if they should move closer or give him space. "You are Hilda of Tula, yes?" he asked. "Yes, my prince." Her voice was calm. "I have heard people speak of you. They say your hands are blessed, that you call herbs by name like friends. Herbs help anyone who respects them, like people." He smiled. "You speak boldly for someone in a simple wrapper." "I speak the same in any cloth," she replied. The guard shifted, worried she might anger him. But Kamso was more amused than angry. He watched as she handed the calabash to the boy. "What are you giving him?" "Name leaves, bitter bark, water. It will bring down his fever if his mother follows the directions." "And if she does not?" "Then the boy may die," Hilda said plainly. "Sometimes the gods give us leaves and we still refuse to chew." Her eyes met his when she said this. For a moment, Kamso thought of the villagers from Tula, the ones whose pleas he had waved away. He quickly pushed that thought aside. "You speak as if to teach me," he said lightly. "I speak as I see. If the prince walks past a crying child because his boots are dusty, who will the child remember, the dust or the prince?" Her words were soft, but they slipped under his armor like a thin knife. The guard's eyes went wide. One of them muttered, "Careful." Kamso left once, though it sounded a little tight. "You are brave, Hilda of Tula." "Truth is not brave. It is only straight." He left after a while, but her words followed him like a shadow. That night, as the moon climbed over the red walls of Lumora, Kamso lay awake on his woven mat in his cool chamber. Outside, he could hear the river whisper and the night insects sing. He also heard something else in his mind. A strong lion still bends his head to hear a crying child. If the prince walks past a crying child because his boots are dusty, who will the child remember, the dust or the prince? For the first time in a long while, Prince Kamso began to wonder if being strong and being right were always the same thing. Far below his window, in a small room offered by a kind widow, Hilda also lay awake, staring at the roof beams. She thought of the tired faces from Tula and of the prince who had walked away from them. "Forest mothers," she whispered into the darkness, "teach him to listen, because if he does not, we will all pay the price." Days turned into weeks after that sleepless night. Kamso still wore his fine clothes. He still trained with his guards and sat in council with his father. People still called him Lion Prince when he rode past. But something inside him had shifted, like a door that had opened a crack and would not close again. He began to notice things he had not seen before. When he passed the market, he saw not only colors and goods, but tired hands and thin faces. When he heard a child crying, he did not walk faster to escape the sound. His feet slowed. His ears listened. And more, his path kept crossing the path of Hilda of Tula. Sometimes he found her in the market, bending over a sick child or an old woman with swollen feet, her fingers stained green from crushed leaves. Sometimes he saw her near the city gate, tying herbs above doorways to keep bad air away. Once, he found her by the riverbank, washing calabashes while talking softly to a group of widows who had lost their husbands to bandits. Each time, he could have sent a servant. Each time, he went himself. At first, he watched from a little distance, proud and curious. Then he began to step closer. "Can I help?" he asked one afternoon, seeing two boys struggling to carry a heavy man with a wounded leg toward Hilda's mat. Hilda lifted her head in surprise. "If you wish," she said simply. He bent, took most of the weight over his own shoulders, and carried the man the last few steps. Sweat ran down his neck. People stared. A prince carrying a wounded farmer. Later, when Hilda cleaned the wound and wrapped it with clean cloth soaked in bitter herbs, Kamso knelt beside her and held the man's hand so he would not pull away. "Why do you do this?" he asked her quietly when the man finally slept. "Because pain does not ask for titles. It comes to anyone, so help should go to anyone too." Another day, rain beat hard on the palace roofs. Water ran through the streets, turning dust to red mud. A group of soldiers arrived at the palace with fevers and coughs from a cold night on patrol. The palace healer shook his head. "I do not have enough of the right herbs. We sent a boy to the market, but he has not returned." Kamso remembered the quiet room where Hilda slept. He remembered the widow who had given her shelter. Before anyone could stop him, he called for a horse. "Send for Hilda of Tula. Tell her the prince asks for her hands." Hilda came, rain-darkened scarf clinging to her hair, basket heavy with fresh leaves. In the soldier's chamber, she moved with calm skill, boiling water over braziers, mixing steam baths with sharp-scented herbs that made their lungs open. Kamso helped carry pots and fill water jars. The soldiers watched, confused and grateful. "You could have stayed dry in your chamber," Hilda said when she caught him wringing water from his sleeves. "I could, but my men did not stay dry for me." She studied him for a moment, then gave a small, real smile that reached her eyes. Word began to travel faster than any drum. In the markets and lanes, people whispered, "The prince carried a wounded farmer. The prince called the girl of leaves to the palace. The prince listens when she speaks." At first, the king only watched. He saw his son spending less time boasting with nobles and more time walking among common people with Hilda. He saw the way the prince's face changed when she spoke, less proud, more thoughtful, like earth being softened by rain. In the evenings, Kamso and Hilda sometimes sat under a shade tree near the inner wall, close enough for guards to see, but far enough for quiet talk. He told her stories of growing up behind red walls, of feeling like the whole kingdom was a heavy cloak on his shoulders. She told him of walking the forest paths, of listening to the rustle of leaves for guidance, of holding dying hands and promising to fight for the living. "Do you ever wish you were not a prince?" she asked once. Kamso looked at his hands. "Sometimes I wish I could choose who I am," he said, "not just wear who everyone says I must be." "And what would you choose?" Hilda asked softly. He looked at her then, really looked, at the calm strength in her eyes and the way her fingers were never quite clean because they were always helping someone. "I would choose to be a man who deserves you," he said. After that day, their bond was no longer a rumor. It was a truth. The king, seeing his son more patient and more just, began to hope that perhaps this strange love was not a curse, but a gift to Lumora. He agreed, carefully, with many warnings, to bless their union. Some nobles grumbled in corners. Others watched to see which way the wind would blow. But in her quiet chamber, Queen Mother Nkemdili's worry grew roots. She heard servants whispering about how Hilda had soothed a crying child in the palace yard while Kamso watched with soft eyes. She heard guards saying that the prince walked the outer streets more often now, greeting farmers by name. She heard the word marriage spoken with Hilda's name, not with the name of any noble daughter. Night after night, the prophecy came back to her. A union without noble blood will break the throne in two. Her love for her son and her fear for the kingdom tangled inside her like fighting snakes. By the time the moon had grown full again, the royal drums began to practice a special pattern. Tailors measured cloth, cooks tested wedding dishes, courtyards were swept twice a day. To the people of Lumora, it was a time of joy. To Kamso and Hilda, it was a promise. To the Queen Mother, it was a warning. Outside, the night wind answered by slipping through the trees and down into the dark forest, where old things waited and watched with patient eyes. And somewhere in that deep forest, a pair of yellow eyes opened. Ogamumi, the night witch, smiled slowly, as if she knew a frightened queen would soon come looking for her. The day of the royal wedding came with bright music. From early morning, Lumora woke up in color. Women tied their best wrappers in red, gold, and deep indigo. Men brushed their tunics and oiled their sandals till they shone. Children ran through the streets, pretending to be princes and brides, holding long grass like swords and veils. Drums spoke from every corner of the city. Talking drums told the story of Kamso's bravery in past battles. Deep barrel drums boomed like a strong heart. Flutes danced on top of the sound like birds. "Today our lion prince will marry," people shouted. "Today he will take a queen." In a room high inside the palace, Kamso stood before a polished bronze plate that served as his mirror. Servants helped him dress, but his eyes were far away, full of thought. He wore a rich indigo robe, softer and finer than his everyday tunic. Gold thread formed small lion heads along the edges. A simple but strong belt held the cloth in place. Around his neck hung a thin chain with the symbol of Lumora, a lion standing beside a river. His scar on his right cheek seemed whiter today against his warm brown skin. One of the servants smiled. "You look like a king already, my prince." Kamso smiled back, but his voice was softer than usual. "Today I only want to be a good husband." His friend and guard Jaha stood near the doorway. "You are nervous," Jaha teased. "The lion's knees are shaking." Kamso laughed. "Maybe a little." He thought of Hilda in her small room somewhere below, getting ready. He remembered her hands as they crushed leaves, her eyes when she spoke truth, even when it cut him. He had never met anyone like her. She saw him not as a shining prince, but a man who could do better. A knock came at the door. Queen Mother Nkemdili entered, with 3 older women behind her. She wore deep blue cloth and a heavy gold necklace. Her face was smooth, too smooth, like a river hiding strong currents beneath. "My son," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "you are ready." Kamso bowed his head. "Mother." She touched his cheek with the back of her fingers, then let her hand fall. "Remember your fathers. Walk with strength. Let the people see the blood of kings in you. And let them see kindness, too. I want them to trust me, not only fear me." For a moment, the Queen Mother's eyes shone with pride and pain mixed together. "Kindness can be a knife in a king's back," she said softly. "Be careful." "If kindness is a knife, then I would rather be cut than become a stone." He left the room with Jaha and the other guards. Nkemdili watched him go, her fingers twisting her bead string until the cord almost snapped. Her mind flew back to the night before. She remembered the forest. She had walked alone past the last farms, past trees that grew thick and close together. Wind hissed in the leaves. Strange fireflies that were not fireflies moved between the branches. "Forest mothers, forgive me," she had whispered, but her feet did not turn back. Deep in a hollow, she found Ogwumu. The night witch sat on a low rock, wrapped in a dark, torn cloth that seemed to be made of shadows. Her skin was ashy, her eyes bright yellow like a hunting animal's. Around her, small shapes crawled, a snake here, a thin rat there, a spider with legs long and slow. "You came," Ogwumu said. Her voice was like dry leaves being crushed. "Queens do not bow easily." Nkemdili shivered but lifted her chin. "I was told you always obey words exactly." Ogwumu smiled, showing pointed teeth. "I do not bend them. I do not soften them. I take what is said and make it flesh." The Queen Mother's voice shook. "There is a danger to my son and to the throne. A girl from the village, a union that must never be." "What is it you want?" the witch asked. "Say it straight." "Erase this problem," Nkemdili said. Ogwumu tilted her head. "What problem?" "The woman," the Queen Mother whispered. "The one from Tula." "And the prince?" Ogwumu's eyes glowed a bit brighter. Nkemdili thought of the prophecy. "A union without noble blood will break the throne in two." She had carried those words like a stone all her life. "Make him," she swallowed, "make him unfit for any woman." Silence fell. Even the leaves seemed to hold their breath. "So you have said it," Ogwumu breathed. "The woman erased. The prince unfit for any woman." The night witch raised her thin hands. Shadows twisted like smoke around her fingers. For a moment, Nkemdili thought she saw a rat's long tail curl in the air, then vanish. "The price will be heavy, not in coins, in truth." "I will pay it," Nkemdili said quickly, though she did not yet understand what that meant. Now, back in her bright room, she pressed her shaking hands together. "May this be enough to save the throne. May it not destroy us all." Down in a lower chamber, Hilda stood before a small clay bowl filled with water. It served as her mirror today. Women from Tula and from the palace helped her dress. She wore a soft cream wrapper with an indigo border that carried small leaf patterns. Tiny beads shone at her neck and ears, simple and beautiful. Her hair was braided in neat lines and gathered at the back with a thin band. No gold crown, no heavy jewels, just the quiet beauty of a village girl loved by a prince. "You look like a queen," one of the older women said, eyes wet. "I'm still Hilda," she replied with a small smile. "If I become queen, let me be Hilda first." A younger girl giggled. "Do you think the forest mothers will come?" Hilda's fingers touched the small charm of plaited grass at her wrist. "They already watch," she said. "I feel it." She thought of the villagers from Tula, of burnt stores and hungry children. She had argued with Kamso many times in the past months. "Listen to them now," she had told him. "We will fix it after the wedding," he had said, "when things are calmer." She loved him, but she knew his blind spots. She hoped marriage would help him see more clearly. The great courtyard of the palace was full. Nobles in bright cloth stood in careful lines. Villagers packed the higher steps and edges, standing on tiptoe to see. Flowers lay in baskets near the altar. Drums beat a slow, grand rhythm. Prince Kamso walked down the long path between the people, Jaha at his side. Cheers rose again, but softer, more respectful this time. When he reached the front, he turned to face the crowd. His eyes searched until they found Hilda being led out from a side arch, walking slowly between women carrying flowers. She took her breath away, not because of her clothes, but because her eyes were the same as always, clear and calm, like a pool in the forest. She reached his side. He took her hand. It felt small, but steady in his. "Are you ready?" he whispered. "As ready as a leaf in a storm," she answered with a tiny smile. The priest raised his hands and began to speak blessings over them. Words of long life, strong children, peace over the land. The crowd echoed some phrases. Queen Mother Nkemdili stood on a raised platform to the side, guards behind her. She kept her face still, but inside her heart beat like a drum of fear. What had Agomu done? Would the spell even work? Could it be stopped? As the priest came to the moment of joining, a wind rose from nowhere. It was not a normal breeze. It felt cold and hot at the same time. Candles flickered. Some went out. Kamso frowned. "Did you feel that?" he whispered. Hilda nodded, her fingers tightening around his. "Yes, the forest mothers are near, but something else is with them." "Prince Kamso, do you take Hilda of Tula to be your wife, to stand with you in sun and rain, in peace and war?" Kamso looked into Hilda's eyes. "I do," he began. But before the words were fully out, pain stabbed his chest. He gasped. His knees buckled. "Kamso!" Hilda cried, grabbing his arms. His bones felt like they were squeezing inward. His robe grew heavy and huge around him. The world rose like a wall. Gasps and screams burst from the crowd. "What is happening? Spirits! Witchcraft!" Kamso tried to speak, but his voice broke into strange squeaks. His hands shrank, fingers twisting. Black fur pushed out of his skin, thick and glossy. His feet pulled in, toes curling, claws growing. His face pushed forward, nose and mouth stretching into a snout. His tailbone burned. Then a long, thin tail whipped out behind him like a living whip. In moments, the Lion Prince was gone. In his place, on the altar mat, stood a giant black rat. Not an ordinary rat. His fur was sleek and dark, with soft brown and white streaks along his back. His eyes were still his, deep and brown, now huge and full of terror and shame. A faint scar marked the fur on his cheek, just where it had been on his human face. Around his head, as if mocking a crown, lay a delicate band of etched bronze. Hilda fell back, hands to her mouth. "Kamso?" she whispered. The crowd exploded. "Demon!" someone shouted. "A curse! Kill it!" another voice cried. Children screamed. Some ran, others stared frozen. Guards raised their spears, unsure what to do. And just like that, our royal wedding didn't just go wrong. It ran away on 4 tiny legs. Now listen. Part 2 is where the real fire starts. Because in Part 2, the guards are about to strike, the nobles are screaming for blood, and Hilda must choose in seconds: run for her life or protect the rat who was once her prince. But wait, the forest mothers don't stay silent. That strange wind you felt? It was a warning, and the moment Kamso crawls into the palace shadows, he will hear secrets that could destroy Lumora forever. Meanwhile, a rival warlord is already moving toward the throne, and the Queen Mother's hands are shaking because she knows something terrible. The curse did not go the way she planned. And deep inside the forest, Ogvumu is smiling because the price for this bargain is coming, and someone will have to sacrifice something huge to break the spell. So if you want part 2 right now, hit like, subscribe, and comment part 2. 100 likes and I drop it immediately.